I could waste your time here today talking about the hyper-specifics of the Arthur Smith offense, the different formations, the different personnel groups, and I will mention some of that. But the bigger talking point, what really jumps out to me so far in this training camp, is the identity element. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. He has lined them up in some of the wildest ways, okay? And it's not just about the pistol. It's not about having multiple players here, multiple players there. It's not even the one time that he had, you're going to think I'm making this up, but this actually happened. He had two tight ends wide to one side, three wide receivers wide to the other. That's bonkers, bordering on gimmicky. But no matter what it is that he's used, and no matter what X's he's applied to the defense's O's in camp, the theme, the common theme, not common, the universal theme from the people on this offense, I can condense it down to two things. One, it's professional. There's no way to say this without comparing it to what they were using, which was the Matt Canada offense. This is professional. That comes out of the players' mouths. They're the ones talking openly about how there's no tells, there's no giveaways, there's no mega obvious clues so that the other team knows exactly how to stop you. One can only imagine the level of frustration of a professional football player lining up while the other team is yelling out your plays and knowing that no matter what you do to try to execute that play properly, you're doomed. They are thrilled about this. But two, and I don't even know that it's two, it might be one for how much they talk about this. Every play, every alignment, whether it's the silly thing I just shared with you, whether it's 12 personnel, 13 personnel, or whether it's just a whole bunch of wideouts, every play comes with an emphasis, a specific and pointed emphasis on physicality. Smith wants this offense to beat up the defenses that they play. He feels he has the people for it. He feels he has the fire for it. I've talked with him about this. He feels that what's here, what's already in the fold, is a fit for what he sees this offense being. In some cases, that'll mean being as big as Darnell Washington. In other cases, it'll mean just being as, boy, what's a good word to describe Roman Wilson when he's healthy? He's a firecracker. He's got that something little extra to him. And if all goes well in his recovery from the ankle sprain, I do believe he's going to be a part, and maybe a major part, of this offense. And I don't need to run the whole way across the entire offense and name all the names for you to know who the rest of them are. Everybody, no exceptions, has to be all in on this. That's the genesis of, for example, some of the edginess that was witnessed early in camp between George Pickens and Zach Azzanni, the new and really fiery wide receivers coach. Nobody's taking any plays off from blocking. And it's not just blocking. He wants them in faces. He wants all Hines Ward all the time. None of that Deontay Johnson stuff. None of that. Remember when George didn't want to block for Jaylen Warren down near the end zone late last season? They're counting the number of snaps. They're counting the number of snaps in which the wide receivers have to block on running plays or block for each other on short passes. They're making it clear that just because your number isn't called doesn't mean you don't have a role. They're even stressing, and I love this, selling that it's your play. This is something else you would never see last season. Never, ever, ever. Where the wide receivers would really go out there and sell that, yeah, this one's coming to me. This one's coming to me. Certain body language that you show, anticipation, maybe checking to the side to see if you're on side with the nearest official, looking nervously back at your quarterback. ham it up, rub your hands a little bit, go for it. It's like Hollywood. But all of that's part of it. It's selling out on every play. You remember, I'm going to guess, when Najee Harris would have those critical rants. He had one last season in Cleveland where he would pop off about a lack of accountability and discipline. And it was met mostly in the public, at least the sense that I got, with a whole lot of shrugs or seizing upon that to go at the head coach. But that wasn't the case. That's not what Najee was talking about. And I told you this back then. It was all about the coordinator. And it was about the coordinator being so far removed from his players, meaning hiding out in the one room down the hall, never directly communicating with them. He would communicate with the positional coaches. And so when things like what I'm describing here today didn't happen, and you didn't have all 11 feeling that same energy, feeling that same camaraderie, then that's what happens. What you saw, that's what happens. Whereas once Canada was gone and Eddie Faulkner and Mike Sullivan took over, you might not have had the greatest plays being scripted out. They were still working out of the Canada playbook, but you did have accountability. You did have a collective spirit. Then Mason Rudolph comes in, makes some passes, and everything just clicked. Well, think of it that way. Only think of it with a full summer of preparation. When we come back, J1Q. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George, LGKG, is a personal injury law firm in Western Pennsylvania that represents people hurt in car accidents or who need help with workers' comp or medical malpractice. When the attorneys at LGKG make you a promise, they keep it. They've been keeping promises in our region for over 80 years. LGKG's been AV rated, the highest rating a law firm can receive, and they've been designated super lawyers. That's actually a thing for over 15 years. It's a rare combination. LGKG has offices in Cranberry, Newcastle, Beaver Falls, Butler, and Elwood City. Learn more about them by visiting lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. LGKG. Today's J1Q comes from Jack, who bails me out on this Quarterback Monday for not having really brought up the quarterbacks in the opening segment. Jack says, DK, Mike Tomlin has shown that he doesn't handle QBs well. What we're seeing now, I think, in this camp is another example. I don't understand why he'd need to anoint Russell Wilson or Justin Fields the starter at this point. They're both veterans, period. I get that Wilson's played longer, but there's a reason he was jettisoned from his past two teams. Fields had a really shaky tenure in Chicago, but also didn't have much help. I just don't understand why you don't leave the starting position open until you're actually around these guys all summer. Wilson can be the guy, but why not allow him or Fields to earn it? This past week, Tomlin reemphasized the whole pole position, Jack, as it relates to Wilson. Wilson's the starter. I reported in this past Friday's Insider feature on DK Pittsburgh Sports that Wilson's going to be the starter no matter what, barring injury, of course. Now, I know that's a bit of a buzzkill to some. I popped some balloons, I'm sure, but that's how it's going to be. You could watch Fields light up the preseason. You could watch him go the full Kenny Pickett on the preseason. 158.3, baby, all 3 games. And it won't change that Wilson's going to open the season as the starter. I won't reflexively take Tomlin's side on this, but I'm kind of with him. Not going to lie. It's not because I want to see Wilson succeed over Fields. It's more because I have the feeling that he would be the best guy to open up. And also this. What we're seeing from Fields right now at this camp, and because these things get videotaped from the crowd, media is not allowed to tape offense versus defense settings, But that doesn't stop Joe Q Public from doing it up in the 11th row of the bleachers. So these make it out to social media, and everybody looks and they go, wow, that's just such a perfect pass. There was one that Fields hit the other day to Van Jefferson that might be just the prettiest thing you'll ever see. What a touch. I mean, what a sense for the receiver's speed. What arm strength. But if you're there and you could ask these same fans the same thing, you'll also know that Fields has been sitting in that pocket for 7 or 8 seconds sometimes. I mean, it's actually kind of funny because there's nothing the defense is allowed to do to him. They can get back there. They can put their hands on him to show their coach and the coordinator, hey, look, I made it. This would have been a sack. But you're not allowed to do any actual damage because, common sense. Well, Fields isn't one of those guys who will stop when the play seems to stop by the defender getting there. Fields will just keep going. And when that happens, the wide receiver has all day to get open, and he has all day to throw to that wide receiver. These are not game settings, my friends. They are not. And the same applies in a different context to the preseason games. The reason that Kenny could put up a perfect passer rating in the exhibition games and be a complete catastrophe in the regular season games is that all that stuff that I was describing in the opening segment about the tells, the giveaways, the defense seeing what you're doing, the defense adjusting for you, none of that comes into play in exhibitions. Nobody's Xing and Oing anything in exhibitions. You're working on your own stuff. If anything, you're trying really hard to not show too much so that your first opponent doesn't get any hints, meaning your first real opponent. Don't get me wrong. I am delighted that Fields is looking as sharp as he has in this camp. That's part of this, especially someone of his skill, his natural skill, as well as the things that held him back with the Bears. You want to see him be precise with the ball. You want him to be deliberate in his actions. He's been that. It's a good start. It's a promising start. It means nothing toward who QB1 is by the time the team gets to Atlanta. And that, Jack, is what the head coach has been telling you, and all he's done is be honest. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers, and we will have another one of these tomorrow.